Yes, thank you, Philip.
Thank
Teka
you.
muna, tama ba itong tingin ko, Pure? Am I looking at my watch and my clock? Correctly, it's 10:31. We are on time. We are on time for our guest speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Di ba? Hazel, tama ba, Pure? Am I looking at my slides correctly? Yes. Oo, kasi ito yung much awaited. Yan. Ito po yung much awaited ano natin. Kasi po ang ating speaker is one of the very in demand motivational, call it motivational, inspirational speakers. More than that, is also a best-selling author, mga kaibigan. And I'm actually very much blessed to be part of his mentoring group for aspiring authors. Yes, so he is a very nurturing, nourishing coach. Especially, mararamdaman niyo po ito kung kayo ay nasa mentoring group niya. So, sa tinatawag naming Project 2.0, Project Author 2.0. And his bestsellers include Ang Pera na Hindi Bitin, yung national bestseller, yung number 5 national bestseller. Ito yung ano Philip, makaka-identify talaga tayong dalawa rito. Ito yung talagang libro niya na nabasa ko. And ironically, hindi ko binili. Binigay sa akin ng friend ko. Siguro na naintindihan ng friend ko. Ito dito ako nakaka-relate Yung Real Men Are Pogi. Ayan. Relate ako dyan. So, Philip, kung hindi mo pa nababasa, bibigyan kita, bro. Ayan. Makaka-relate ka rin dyan. Ayan. Yes. Okay. Ito, syempre, ewan ko kung ito, I'm sure hindi niya to nilalagay sa curriculum vitae niya, pero it's worth mentioning that he is the better half of the first runner-up Miss Universe 1999, first runner-up, of course, the famous Miriam Quiambao. Ayan. And they have 3 children, si Josh, si Elijah, at si Ezekiel. Nakita niyo naman. Sa pangalan lang po ng mga children na, they are very spiritual, very religious, and God-fearing people. Ayan. So, mga kaibigan, again, it's really a blessing to have him this morning. Thank you, Pure, for being able to get for us this very inspirational speaker. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Ardy Roberto.
Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Miss Pure, Sir June, Sir Philip, Sir Sugus, next best-selling author, also known as Stevie Wonder. Yan, MDRT.
I-claim ko na yan, Coach.
So good morning, Team Mount Pinnacle pala to. Mga God's powerful champions of abundance. I love your opening prayer, Claire. Nagsusurge ang abundance and blessings, di ba? Yan. Nasisilaw din ako dito Sugus, kaya kailangan ko rin mag-shades. Ayan. Okay ba?
Bagay, Coach, bagay.
Bagay. Parang Top Gun. Hindi Top Gun dito, parang siyo, but Tom Cruise na Top Gun. Okay. Pinaka-breakfast na ba kayo? Yan. It's important ako. I have my lemon water and my goji berries. Yeah. But before anything else, let me start by making a confession. Although I thank you for that introduction, sa totoo lang, I usually notice, especially in live audiences, I notice that people don't really get impressed or moved when my professional accomplishments are mentioned, like best-selling author, award-winning entrepreneur. Pero when the host mentions that I am married to the former Miss Universe first runner-up Miriam Quiambao, lumalaki yung mata nila, their eyebrows raise up, and lots of people start cheering. Aminin nyo na. Kasi I realized that when they look at me and then they look at Miriam, and then they look at me and then they look at Miriam, inspired na sila. Di ba? Iniisip nila, wala talagang imposible sa Diyos. And I'm sure many of you, nakamute lang kayo, are laughing at tuwang-tuwa kayo. And I'm glad that you are happy because it's a new year. And we're supposed to be happy. Yes? Yes. All right. So, how are you and how has the new year been so far for you guys? Okay,
Good.
good. And how many can truly say that based on the first 15 days of the year, 2022 has been happy, a happy year so far?
Yes.
Despite the COVID, yes.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Good. Very good. So actually for me and my household, I'll share with you, 2022 has been, happy. Hard not to be happy when you have a new baby. I have a new baby, 6 months old. Pero at the same time, it's been very challenging kasi COVID struck my household. January 1, my yaya was positive. And then my wife, nakita niyo yung news item, di ba? And then my son, and then me, just a few days ago. In fact, as I speak to you guys right now, I'm still in quarantine. I'm still positive. So if I suddenly collapse while speaking, please call 911 later, okay? Just kidding. I'm okay. My oxygen level is about 94, 95. And it's just a blessing that this COVID variant is relatively mild, di ba? So ito, nagkaroon na ng fever, ubo, sore throat, and that's why my voice is like this, parang bedroom voice, di ba? But the symptoms are manageable. Kaya lang, the past few days, all I wanted to do was sleep. Gusto ko lang matulog, which is good for me because the last few weeks of December, being the holidays, were so busy with engagements and talks that I was going on 3 to 4 hours of sleep. So blessing in disguise na rin. Anyway, I'm just curious, who among you here also were positive starting this 2022? Matanong ko kayo.
Exposed lang, coach. My
Exposed.
wife is recovering. Pero mukhang recovered na nga siya.
Yun, okay, that's good, that's good. Well, when I was invited by Ms. Pure and Sir Sugus and the FW team to speak with you today on starting fresh and starting with hope, first I reflected on the why and the what. Now I'll just take a technical break. I just want to find out, when I look at the screen, my face is frozen. Gumagalaw ba yung ano?
Yeah, it's frozen.
It's frozen.
Yes,
Okay.
coach.
So sige, kanta muna tayo ng Let It Go para mag
Power muna ulit. Sugo.
so, sige.
Welcome again, Coach Ardy Roberto.
Thank you, Sugus. Ako, sorry medyo nasilaw sa abundance yung laptop ko tsaka yung aking camera. Kaya nag-freeze. So I assume kumanta na kayo ng Let It Go and you had a wonderful time also with Sir Mark. So thank you for your patience. Tama-tama yung theme natin, di ba? Starting fresh. Starting anew with hope. And I really hope that we will be together for the duration of the next 40 minutes that I have with you. All right. So everyone's good? Yes, you're all pumped up? Let me continue where I left off. Okay. So again, as I was invited by Sir Sugus and Miss Pure and the FW team to speak with you today on starting fresh and starting with hope. First, I reflected on the why and the what. Why? Why is it so important that we kick off this year with high hopes, right? And number two, I was thinking, what stories and especially personal life stories can I share as actual case studies to demonstrate the importance of having high hopes for this new year? Okay, so let's start with why. And why is hope so important when kicking off the new year? Whether it's for a new business, a venture, a project, or starting off a new life or relationship. Why? Because the level of hope that you have at the start of a project or a start of a business or start of a new life will determine its success or failure. Yes, that's true. It's not a philosophical statement. It's actually a scientific statement. When I was doing research for my book, The Heart of Healing, one of the first books and award-winning books that I wrote, as I was writing this, I came across some very fascinating facts about the power of human hope. There's this doctor, his name is Dr. Harold Wolf. He's a doctor and professor of medicine in Harvard University. And he said this. He said, hope, faith, and purpose in life is medicinal. Para siyang gamot. This is not merely a statement of belief, but a conclusion proved by meticulously controlled scientific experiment. In other words, medical science proves that hope is very powerful. In fact, when pharmaceuticals come up with a new drug or even vaccine that is launched, they have to test that new medicine against the power of human hope. How many of you know how they test that? Okay, kung galing kayo sa pharmaceutical, alam niyo siguro to. They have to do a placebo test. Have you heard of the placebo effect? Meron mang nakarinig na niyang placebo effect? Yes? How about yung nocebo effect? Okay? I'm sure many of you have heard of the placebo effect, pero yung nocebo, not too many, right? Okay, let me explain. Today kasi, pharmaceuticals, they have to test using the double-blind method. Okay? Huwag kayo man-nosebleed. Ang ibig lang sabihin niyan is that the administering doctors themselves, when they do a test, they do not know which is the true drug and which is the inert. So, pag binigyan ng gamot yung itetest sila, even the doctors don't know which is the inert drug, meaning parang asukal lang yon, okay, and which is the true drug. Okay? So, which is the controlled drug. Okay? So, the true drug versus the controlled drug. So, do you know why they do this? All new medicines must be tested for one simple reason. What's that? Yes, the power of human hope.
And unbiased.
Before double-blind testing, virtually all drugs showed spectacular results, regardless of their chemical content. So yung mga researchers nagtataka, they were mystified, and eventually, you know what they found out? They found out that the key factor in the new drug success is this. It is how the doctor prescribes. It is by his smile, his voice, and his attitude. And by that, the doctor would unknowingly convey confidence and hope to the patients, convincing the patients the probability of improvement, even if that drug was a placebo. Diba? So kunyari, Sugos, may sakit ka. Oh, Sugos, I'll give you a new drug, experimental, pero I won't tell you kung mayroong placebo or hindi. But I happen to give you the placebo. But because I gave it to you with such confidence, with a kind smile, with you know, that mindset and demeanor that naku, gagaling ka dyan, Sugos. Alam mo, because of the power of human hope, gagaling ka. Something, or at least something positive will happen. Let me just explain, okay? Yeah, kasi the opposite naman is just true. Yeah. So if you have positive expectations sa placebo, okay, you'll have positive side effects. Ang tama doon. Yung nocebo naman, negative expectations equals negative side effects. So, for example, if you have negative expectations about the medicine, whether it is the placebo or not, then it will have very little effect. Very little effect. The doctor who wrote about this or researched about this, his name is Dr. Bernie Siegel. He explains that when the effects of the placebo are negative, the substance or procedure that triggers them is not called placebo, which means placebo means to please. Okay, in Latin, nocebo means I will harm, so it will do some harm. In fact, in an article in the Washington Post, it cited a study that showed how women who simply believed that they were prone to heart disease, okay? Pero wala silang risk factors, okay? Yung mga naniwala lang that they are more prone to heart disease, they were 4 times as likely to die of heart disease as those women who had real heart disease risk factors. Grabe, ba? So yung article concluded the higher risk of death had nothing to do with the usual blood pressure, age, cholesterol, weight. Instead, it tracked closely with belief, whether they were hopeful or hopeless. If they thought they were sick, they became sick. Diba? On the same note, Dr. Siegel says, with both placebos and nocebos, it is the expectations, the hopes aroused by the substance or the medicine that are ultimately responsible for the result. That is how powerful the power of hope is. Now, I'll push the theory even further. Kung may placebo na gamot, meron din very controversial, placebo na heart surgery. Biro mo, in the US, there was this group of surgeons who did not believe that open heart surgery was beneficial. Okay, they were saying that it was a medical racket. Okay, but that's another discussion. Anyway, they wanted to prove that it was really the patient's changed lifestyle after undergoing an expensive, painful procedure like a bypass that healed the patient. But they wanted to prove this hypothesis. How did they? So, alam mo ginawa nila? The surgeons, they actually surgically opened the chest, really, of a few dozen men and women. And without doing the bypass or the operation, they closed it up. So, hindi alam ng pasyente na binuksan lang sila tapos sinara o hindi ginawa yung bypass. Oh, guess what happened? Okay? The people who underwent this pseudo operation thought that they had new arteries, a new start. Diba? They were so hopeful. So, and with this new hope that they had a new heart or a new, at least arteries, they changed their lifestyle. Diba? Their diet changed, their exercise. They had an exercise program. They had a low stress program prescribed by the doctors. And these patients got better to the point that they eventually didn't really need the real bypass.
You tested yesterday.
So later, authorities found out about what these surgeons did, mga walang iya, di ba? And nearly lost their licenses. But they did prove their point that 50% of all heart bypasses are unnecessary. So question is, how do you apply the placebo and nocebo effect in your business and life so that we harvest an abundance? How do you apply this to your business? Okay. May I propose? Because if we have an IQ, intelligence quotient, or EQ, emotional quotient, or SQ, spiritual quotient, or even AQ, which I think you heard of, adversity quotient, I'd like to coin a new term for you to adopt, and I'll call it HQ. Ayan, ha? HQ. Ano yung HQ? It's your hope quotient. The higher your HQ, the higher your likelihood of abundance this 2022. Try it. Try it. The hope quotient. Bahagi yun, di ba? Oh, exclusive. I just thought about that for you. So, but look at this. This is the key. Whatever is your HQ or hope quotient and your expectations at the start of this year, it will determine the level of success or failure. That's why this kickoff is so important. This new year, this January, is so important that you already set high expectations and hopes for yourself and your team. That will spell the difference between feast or famine, abundance or poverty. So to connect this, I'll share one more study in the business world that I found fascinating. And I found this in the Harvard Business Review. Okay, Harvard. And it's about the Pygmalion effect. How many of you have heard of the Pygmalion effect? Yeah? The Pygmalion effect is a form of tinatawag na self-fulfilling prophecy. Diba? Self-fulfilling prophecy. So, I don't know kung na-experience yun na yan yung nung mga bata kayo. Kasi kami, panahon namin sugos, labas kami sa kalye. Ayan, ha? Yung pag tumatakbo ka sa kalye, tapos maririnig mo yung nanay mo, ay yung lola mo sumisigaw, hoy, 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 sugos, sugos, sugos. Huwag kang tatakbo ng mabilis. Madatapa ka, madatapa ka, madatapa ka, madatapa ka, madatapa ka, madatapa ka, madatapa. Ano po nangyari?
Madapa nga.
Nadapa nga.
Tapang.
That's what you call a self-fulfilling prophecy. Kakauli mo na madatapa yung anak mo, yung apo mo, madatapa nga yan. Kasi yan lagi naririnig niya eh. Diba? Ako, or like for example, you're recruiting and then meron ka ng bagong recruit tapos sasabihin ng asawa or kaibigan, uy, naku pare, magbebenta ka ng life insurance, magiging financial planner. Naku pare, ang dami na dyan, mahirap yan, hindi yan uubra, malulog. Yun. If those people are surrounded by all those negas, ingatan nyo, magkakaroon sila ng Pygmalion effect. You've seen this, right? You've seen this happen time and time again. The Harvard Business Review actually wrote about the Pygmalion effect, but they have a term called the Rosenthal effect. Okay? And the Rosenthal effect is simply this. It says, expectations placed on a person, be they positive or negative, influence the person and their behavior. So therefore, the greater the expectations placed upon your people, the better they perform. Wow. Eureka. The better or the greater the hopes and the expectations placed on your people, the better they perform. Pasensya na. Isn't that mind-boggling? It just shows how God created us equipped with the most powerful computer in the history of mankind. We have what you call our neck-top computer. Okay, what is your neck-top computer operating on? Is it operating on hope and high expectations? Okay, or is it operating on negativity and nocebos? Okay, so anyway, the Harvard Business Review said they tested this on some companies and they found out that, you know what, if a supervisor in a company actually believes and has high hopes that every employee has the ability to make a positive contribution at work, the telegraphing of that message, either consciously or unconsciously, will positively affect employee performance. You know how much it affected it? It affected so much that some companies actually experienced a 40% increase in productivity. It doesn't cost you anything. Yeah. Pinnacle, if you want to have a 40% increase in your productivity, simply adopt this HQ factor mindset. Have high expectations of the people, the team that you have, and they will rise up to your hopes and expectations of them. On the other hand, if we expect negative and put negative labels on people, if you have a team member and you look at that person, you already prejudge them saying, ay, sige lang, kulelat yan, pero pagbigyan na lang natin. Siguro aabot siya ng hanggang dito lang. If you put those kinds of labels on people, call them tamad, call them unreliable, they will live up to that expectation, even if you do not verbalize that. That's how powerful that is. That's how powerful that is. And the same thing can happen also to this country. We're now in elections, and whether your candidate wins or not, and if you have this mindset saying na wala na pag-asa tong bayan natin, you know what? Itong bansa natin will live up to your expectations. So we might as well believe in the Filipino, believe in ourselves, and have high hopes for the country, for the Philippines. God has a great plan for this country. This is a beautiful country, right? Say that with me. This is a beautiful country, the Philippines.
This is
It's a beautiful country,
country.
the Philippines.
Yes.
The Philippines.
Amen. If you don't believe that, my son was so nahawa na siya sa makaklase yan na gusto nilang umalis ng Pilipinas. They were disillusioned. And I let him read the book of Attorney Alex Lacson, 12 Wonderful Things About the Philippines. He wrote the book, 12 Little Things That You Can Do for the Philippines. We have a beautiful country that is rich in natural resources. And just look at yourself, the richest in talent. The richest in talent. In fact, we export 10% of our population to the world. because we are so much in demand. Bilib na bilib yung mga ibang bansa sa talento natin that they have to import us. Di ba? So, sa Tagalog, basta have hope. Di ba? Habang may buhay, may pag-asa.
May pag-asa.
Yes, as di ba, King Solomon said, as anyone who is among the living has hope, even a live dog is better off than a dead lion. Di ba? Habang may buhay, tama ka, Pure, may pag-asa. So, kung meron kayong katabi ngayon, o kahit wala, sabihin mo sa sarili mo, habang may buhay, may
May
pag-asa.
pag-asa.
May pag-asa.
Habang may buhay, may
Habang may buhay,
pag-asa.
may pag-asa.
Yun. Ganda talaga ng boses ni Sugos.
Maganda lang yung mic ko, Coach. Maganda yung mic. Nasa mic lang po yan.
Humble pa. So yun, Sugos, kayo, I mean, congratulations that you're all going to, sarap ano? Sana makasama ko sa inyo sa Paris or sa Japan at sa KL. You know, are you expecting your teammates, your team members to do the same thing? Do you hope that they will at least, or do you have hopes that they will at least reach halfway? Ano mga expectations nyo sa mga team members nyo? Do you expect them to reach at the very top or just go midway? What are your expectations? That's something you really need to find out. Okay, who will strive with you all the way to the top? You need to answer that seriously. It's so important. Do you know the definition of settling for halfway? Kunyari, you bring your teammates and you tell them, oh sige, okay na dyan, kahit yan lang naabot mo sa gitna. Diba? Sinasabi mo, pwede na yan. The Latin word for middle is midi. The Latin word for mountain is ochre. So when you say pwede na to someone, you're actually saying it is what? Okay na yan. Kahit mediocre.
Mediocre.
That's what going to the halfway to the mountain really means. And many of us are guilty of saying, o sige, kawawa naman, baka hindi na, huwag na natin i-push yan. Hanggang dyan na lang pwede na yan sa gitna. We are actually delegating them to mediocrity by having those kind of expectations and hopes on them. So we might as well have high hopes and expectations, for yourself and for your team. Now that this year you're going to recruit a lot of people, expect that they'll go with you all the way to the top.
Amen.
Yes, amen. And when you do that, you have set yourself up for abundance. And you have your leaders here to follow, and I think they're setting the way and modeling the way because sila mismo naaabot nila yung pinnacle, yung top. Right? So it doesn't just happen with hope. Sabi nga ni Jack Welch, hope is not a strategy. You start with hope and then you start sitting down and writing down those hopes and aspirations for yourself and your team. Those can also be called goals. So people who write down their hopes and aspirations and their goals were 42% more likely to achieve those goals than the ones who didn't write it down. So how many of you have written down those hopes, those expectations, those goals that you have for 2022? If you did, if you wrote it down, you are 42% more likely to achieve it than those who did not write it at all. And if you want to further, go to the top and reach that goal, the secret is the next step, share. Studies show that when you tell a friend about your goal, your hopes, and aspirations, this increases your success rate by 78% by simply sharing and having someone accountable to. Amazing, di ba? Just by putting 2 more steps to that, what I've been talking about, having high hopes. Write it down and share it. Write it down and share it. Okay. So yes, how are you guys doing so far? Can I invite you to just stand up wherever you are in your chairs and stretch and reach for the stars and say yes.
Yes!
Yes.
Yun, yes, all
Yes.
louder pa.
Yes!
Yes.
Yes!
William.
Yes!
Yes.
Yes!
That's why I like being with this group, with the Pinnacle. Di ba? I can, kahit naka-COVID pa ako, I can feel your energy. It's flowing through me. I can feel your abundance, and that's great. Now, as we go to the last half of this, may I have your permission to make the rest of this talk very personal? Is that okay? Life
Yes.
is short. Life is short, and I share these stories with the hope that others will benefit and learn from it. So, is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Tayo lang naman di ba?
Yes. Yes.
Oo. Okay. So when I was thinking about the theme starting fresh and starting the new year with hope, I thought about a particular year in my life when I didn't have much hope or happiness. It was the year 2013. Tagal na, no? 9 years ago. It was this time, the beginning of January. And I remember starting that year, December 31, in the hospital donating blood to my own wife, who was battling with an autoimmune disease called SLE, or systemic lupus erythematosus. Okay, it's the same disease that killed the late President Ferdinand Marcos. So my wife was in and out of the ICU by that time, almost 5-6 months, and undergoing dialysis as well. When January 1, 2013 came about, I remember clearly watching the fireworks from our hospital window, on the 7th floor. And in my mind, I was still hopeful. I was thinking about taking her home in a few days, but little did I know that she would be taking her last breath as I held her in my arms. On January 3, she needed another dialysis, was conking out. On January 4, she started spitting blood. Pneumonia. And so we went back to the ICU, and they put her on a ventilator on the morning of January 5. And after I pleaded with nurses and doctors to tell me if I had to call already family and her sister to come home from the US para mapagpaalam naman na mabuti, they did tell me, yes, it's time. And as I went back to the ICU, I sat down next to my wife and she told me, Dong, Bisaya kasi siya eh. Pila is from Mindanao. Sabi niya, Dong, I want to go home. Uwi na tayo. And I held her hand and I told her, yes, you're going home. And if you see Jesus, you can let go of my hand and hold on to his hand and don't let go. So after close friends and family and our 5-year-old son said their goodbyes, my first wife, Ting Ting, motioned to me to come up to her bed. And her eyes, I know, were telling me that she wanted to be alone. And as the people left the room and I scooped her up, her frail body in my arms, and I kissed her face, she took her last breath. That was June 5 at 6:53 in the evening of 2013. And so I started that new year of 2013 with a 4 million peso hospital bill. I was a widower and a single parent of a 5-year-old boy who had just lost his adoptive mother. So, inspired na ba kayo? Well, hold on, because wait on, there's more. Okay. So, why would I start, or why would I include a talk about starting afresh, starting with hope, with a story about a New Year's death and grief? Well, because the story gets better. Just hold on, okay? But anyway, you know what happened after that? You know what I discovered? Kasi, like, ako, I don't know how many people do this, but ako as a husband, when your wife dies and you're finished informing the immediate family and you have dealt with the paperwork at the hospital and putting the body in the morgue, do you know who the first person you think of calling?
God.
Yes, well, God even before that, but that's right. You continue to call on him. But who else do you call?
Your parents.
Finish na po. After your relatives, after your friends,
Insurance agent.
there you go. That's what I did. For me, I called my life insurance agent. Remember, I had a 4 million peso bill to take care of. Okay. So I texted, I don't remember, I called my agent, her name was Joy. And I remember talking to her and informing her of things passing that day. And I asked her what I needed to do to claim her insurance. And the next moment was like a scene from a horror movie. My jaw drops as my agent says, sorry, Sir Ardy, but I don't know if you've heard, but the company is now under receivership. Receivership, I asked, isn't that another word for closed? Well, sorry, Sir Ardy, parang ganun, pero we're doing everything that we can so that, and everything else that she said just went past me. Nanlamig yung puso ko at tuhod ko ng hina. I didn't hear her explanation after that, but it was clear that I wasn't going to expect anything except maybe part of the premiums that I had previously paid so many months later. I was numb and dumbfounded, and I was so sure it couldn't get any worse. And so I later called my friend who had sold me a memorial plan. Kasi tinatanong na ako, where do you plan to put the body, etc. So I called my friend whom I had bought a memorial plan several years before. And I told him, Jaime, ting, wala na, she passed away. And he said, condolence, thanks. And so I asked him, I just wanted to call you and ask for your help in claiming her memorial plan benefits. And my friend Jaime says, sorry, bro, pero I don't know if you heard, but Prudential Insurance, it just closed down 2 months ago. So before I go on with my happy story, yes, there's a happy ending. Nandiyan ba kayo? You need to realize how important you guys are, to your clients, especially in that time of need. You could be a hero. It's yours, natatawa ko. Pero at the same time, naiiyak ako just remembering that time. How different would it have been if I had chosen a different company to insure myself and my loved ones? But that's in the past. So I just wanted to share this part of the story because I want you to know how noble and how important you can be to someone at that time of need. Because you're not just in the business of selling insurance, diba? You're not just in the business of selling insurance. In fact, I would say that you are in the business of selling hope. You're in the business of selling hope. So dapat wala kayong, you should not even hesitate to offer your business. Because when your clients face that fateful day, when they need to call you in on their policies, kayo na lang ang pag-asa. They are hopeful that the money that they will get will help them get over some of the financial challenges they are facing because of that personal crisis. Ang lupit, di ba? Ang lupit. But that's what happened to me. And I hope that never happens to anyone. And I'm sure with FWD that will never happen with any of your clients. So anyway, after the wake and the funeral are over, di ba, the intense grief starts. Crying becomes a lifestyle, and tears become your coffee. I remember one time driving home from the Skyway. I lived in Alabang, and I went to my office in Makati, and there was a song playing on the radio, and I instinctively reached for my wife's hand. Of course, she wasn't there anymore, and I realized that. And there was this kind of weeping that came on, and yung iyak na punong-puno ng mucus, makapal, na nakaka-blind. And at that time, I was wearing glasses. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to even bother cleaning out my glasses. I'm just going to allow myself to drive this car off the Skyway so I could join my wife. That was my intention. I had run out of hope. But then God showed me a picture of hope. The face of my son, Josh, my little cute 5-year-old boy, whom I chose to adopt when he was just 6 months old, together with my first wife. God shows that picture in my mind as I contemplate driving off the skyway and committing suicide. But I need to keep myself alive for my son. And God tells me in his gentle voice, don't be sad, anak, because you're going to love again. That's the first time I heard him say that. You're going to love again. And I'm going to give you one more great love. Kasi in my mind, sabi ko, hindi na ako mag-aasawa. Naka 17 years na ako, quota na ako. I'll just be single for the rest of my life and be a single parent, raise up my son. That was my thought. But the thought of getting married again and loving again was introduced by God. He kept on saying, you're going to love again. And even though I was protesting against that thought, I kept on keeping on for my son. Meron kami favorite expression nun, Coco. I don't know if you know that abbreviation or acronym, COCO. It means keep on keeping on. When someone wants to quit, tell that person, COCO. In fact, say it right now aloud. Say, COCO.
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 COCO. Yeah. Keep on keeping on. Don't quit. God has a plan for you. So when I would take walks and bike rides with my son, Joshua, he would ask me, Dad, why did mom have to die so soon? And I would find myself answering him a promise from God's word. I'm a Christian, and so my worldview is, it's from God's word. It's from a Christian perspective, and that's why I get my hope. But what I told Josh is this. I told him, you know what, Josh, I don't know why God got your mom so soon, but I do know that she's in heaven because she surrendered her life to Jesus. And I do know that we're still alive right now and that God has plans for us. And these are plans to prosper us. These are plans not to harm us. These are plans to give us a hope and a future. That's what I told Josh. Coco, let's keep on keeping on, Josh. There's still hope. And what I discovered, when you give a child a seed of hope, it grows with the fertilizer of childlike faith. Grabe ang mga bata when you give them hope. They believe you or every word you say. And so my son believed that, what I promised him. And so almost every day, my Josh would pray, Dear God, please give my dad a new wife so that I can have a new mom. Yan ang prayer niya. So maybe God did have a plan that did include that. And my son believed that. And I was beginning to believe it too. I did have some doubts and I wondered who in her own right mind would want to marry someone like me, tired, mukhang pasas na, worn out from battling with his wife, with his deceive, had 4 million pesos in hospital debt, had so much baggage and grief. Pero Coco. And then in April, I was given a surprise birthday party by my family. There were 48 chocolate cupcakes with a candle on each. So obviously I turned 48. And I invited Josh to help me blow out all the candles and make a birthday wish for me. Okay. So when I asked him what his wish was for me, he said, Dad, I wish that mom is looking down from heaven and is happy because we're happy here on your birthday celebrating. And then he paused and he looked at me and he said, and I also wish and pray that God will give you a new wife so I could have a new mom. Very consistent, diba? The hope that he had and the belief that he had is unbelievable. And because of that, the God of the universe, not just the universe, but the God who created the universe, heard that humble prayer and matched me and my son with a Miss Universe. Now, like Sugu said, if you're wondering how that happened, okay, hindi naman magic because Miriam, our 1999 Miss Universe first runner-up, Dapat nanalo siya ng Miss Universe ng sandali kung nandun si Steve Harvey. Kay sandali, nanalo siguro siya ng 5 minutes. Pero wala si Steve Harvey. But, I was matched with Miriam. And before I knew her because she was my mentee, my student in that Project Author 2.0 that Sugus was talking about. So mga single, baka may ma-meet kayo sa Project Author. Mag-enroll na kayo kahit wala kayong librong pinaplano.
Si Pure Coach, si Pure.
Tara, Pure.
I knew it.
So yun, the God Redeemers matched me with Miriam. At that time when she was my student, we had no idea that we were going to be matched later on. Now, maybe we'll tell the love story part when we guest in February for the Valentine's special. Yes. But
Gamay.
yeah. But that's what happened. On October 6, 2013, halfway through our morning run, I proposed to Miriam and she said yes. Okay. And so a year that started in grief and mourning ended in joy and dancing. Literally, on December 31, 2013, I was with my son and Miriam on the rooftop of a condominium tower in Sydney, Australia, watching the New Year's Eve's fireworks. We were dancing and we had tears of joy, how God had turned around our lives. And so Joshua's prayer was answered. 3 months later, almost a year after my son's birthday prayer on March 25, 2014, Miriam and I exchanged vows and we became husband and wife. And Josh had his prayer answered. His dad had a new wife and he had a new mom. We were a new family. Coco, wherever you are right now, keep on keeping on. Don't give up. You don't know what wonderful plan God had in store for you. At hindi lang po yun. Wait, there's more. After 5 years of marriage, God heard our prayers to have more children. So at the age of 43, and then again at 45, during this pandemic, Miriam became pregnant. And now we have 2 more boys, Elijah and Ziki, who was conceived during this pandemic, as I mentioned. Amazing, diba? Guys, wherever you are right now, no matter how hopeless a situation is, just like our fertility, the doctor said we were both infertile. My wife had a 1% chance of getting pregnant naturally. She got pregnant naturally. 1% chance. Never, ever give up. Always be hopeful. Always be hopeful. So from this story, as I end, let me share at least 3 lessons that I learned that we can all relate to our theme of starting fresh and starting with hope and abundance. Are you guys still okay?
Yes.
Yes!
Yes,
Coach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sige. Para we can take home something, di ba? So first thing I learned is this. What I discovered is, number 1, is I have to fix my eyes on the author of life. Because when I'm faced with problems and challenges, di ba, who do you look up to? Who do you look for help? Remember the story when Peter, the apostle, he dared to go out of the boat and he wanted to walk towards Jesus, di ba? He began miraculously walking on water towards the Lord when his eyes were focused on him. But when his eyes were focused on the storm and the wind and the rain and the typhoon, he got distracted and he started to sink. Peter's eyes were on the storm instead of Jesus, and he began to sink and drown until Jesus pulled him out and saved him. So during my crisis, the only way I could be filled with hope and not sink into depression was to fix my eyes on my Lord and not the storm. That's what I learned. Number 1, I learned that safety is not the absence of danger, but being in the presence of God in the midst of it. When I began fixing my eyes on God, you know what happened? My surroundings started to change. Even if when my first wife was in the ICU because of seizures, things looked very bleak. Akala ko mamamatay na siya. But she survived that first night, and so did I. Akala ko ako yung mamamatay ng heart attack. I saw her, having seizures. Her mouth was frothing, and I thought she was gonna die that night, her first night in the ICU. And I remember writing in my journal in Facebook, and I wrote there, I'm thanking God for all the blessings of being in this refinery called the ICU. Yes, Lord, I see you. I see you in the ICU. I see you in the midst of darkness and death and the smell of sickness, because so far 3 people have died in the ICU where we're at. But still, I can still see joy that can be found here. Thank you, Lord, for refining us and giving us suits of asbestos called grace. Truly, your grace is enough. And that's what I wrote. So my discovery was this. If I want to be full of hope, I better fix my eyes on the author and perfecter of my faith, my Lord Jesus. Next thing I learned, if you want to start the year fresh and with hope this year, second thing I learned is this. Number 2, if you want to be refreshed, refresh others first. One of the wisest men that ever lived, King Solomon, he said, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Wow, this is so counterintuitive for the human mind, di ba? Kasi we've been raised in an environment of self-preservation to look out for ourselves. We're in the pursuit of pleasure, is encouraged in a selfie culture. That's the kind of culture that we live in. But what Solomon is saying, he who wants to be refreshed should refresh others. Have you heard of Dylan Wilk? Dylan Wilk is a young British entrepreneur who made a lot of money selling computer games. Okay, wala pang internet at that time. He sold it on CDs. And he later sold his company for hundreds of millions of pounds, not just dollars, but pounds. Super successful, but was depressed and didn't know what to do with his money. One night he shouted out. You know what he shouted out to God? He said, God, why did you make me rich? How many of you can relate and have done that before? Sana all, di ba? Sana all can shout out to God and ask him, why did you make me rich? He was rich. He was a millionaire in euros. Okay. But this is what happened. Okay. The answer came to him when he realized that he was tired of life as he knew it, because he was such a taker. He wanted to be refreshed with a new purpose and a new meaning. And so, you know what he did? He started to refresh others by volunteering. He discovered this NGO in all places in the Philippines called Gawad Kalinga. And he started to sell and give away his money to help people at Gawad Kalinga. He sold his first car, his BMW. It built 50 houses in Gawad Kalinga. So he started selling his supercars, his Lamborghini, his Ferrari, his helicopter. And that's when he found happiness. That's when he felt refreshed, when he started becoming generous and giving away. If you want to refresh others, if you want to be refreshed, refresh others first. So later, you know what? He brought this mindset of refreshing others, especially to the poor and his own people, by setting up this company called Human Heart Nature with his wife, Ana Meloto. And his management and leadership style is refreshing. You know what his style is? And it's encompassed in this policy in HR that they have, that there's no firing, walang termination. They have a no firing policy. And because of that, no one works in fear of losing their jobs. They pay them high salaries. The security guard has a salary of 25,000 a month. Okay? Yun naman entry level nila. Everyone is refreshed. Everyone is relaxed. Everyone is happy to work for Human Heart Nature. And they do their best at work in gratitude of this policy of kindness and grace. So today, Human Heart Nature is a multi-million peso company with 34 stores and is present in 6 countries. Now, you can read that story. It's one of the stories in this book. Yes, The Happy Entrepreneur, which I understand as part of the package for this talk I'm giving. Many of you will be fortunate to get or blessed to get a copy of this book. So bahala na sila Sugos and Miss Nice, Miss Pure, kung sino ang magbibigyan ng mga librong ito. Yes?
Yes, thank you.
And so the question is, who can you refresh? One of the things that enabled me to heal after the death of my first wife and be refreshed and restored was I held a Thanksgiving party for my first wife's family and friends, closest. I gathered all of them in my house and thanked them one by one for their prayers and support. And I honored them by giving them a pamana box, a box of my first wife's belongings that I would imagine she wanted to give to them. So her jewelry, her clothes, yung mga ari-arian niya, photo albums, books, etc. I put them together in 40 boxes and gave one each to 40 of her friends and family. And after that, I felt so refreshed. So question again, who can you refresh in your family, in your community, or in your team? Who needs refreshing right now? Who needs a helping hand? You can refresh someone by complimenting them on how good a job they've done. Or encourage them that no matter how much rejections they've got, to keep on keeping on. Or you can even offer them a prayer or send them some cake or ice cream. It doesn't cost much, but the returns are so abundant. And when you refresh someone every day, you know, you are in abundance, in thanksgiving, in love, and in business. Try it. When you become a refresher and giver of hope, instead of a taker, you embody what my mentor taught me was the meaning of hope. Ito po yun. Hope means helping other people every day. That's what I believe hope is. If you want to be a giver of hope, help other people every day. Wow. And lastly, the third thing that I learned was to take care of yourself. Especially in this day and age of the pandemic, you need self-care. You need to take care of yourself. Don't overwork, don't overdo it, because you cannot give what you don't have. But even the airlines say that you need to take care of yourself first in an emergency by putting on your oxygen mask so that you can take care of your others, including your children. That's what you need to do. Many of you need to take care of yourself. When I became a widower, I was warned about the takotsubo syndrome. Okay, it's a Japanese term, pero parang Tagalog, diba? Takotsubo. How many of you are familiar with the takotsubo syndrome? Okay, wala? It's also known as the broken heart syndrome. Ayun, pakita natin. Ito, the takotsubo broken heart syndrome is this. It's proven that within 6 months of the death of your spouse, widowers or widows are 70% more prone to dying of a broken heart. Ayan. Sino ba mga broken-hearted dyan? Ingat kayo, okay? So a broken heart can actually be misdiagnosed as a heart attack if you don't take care of yourself. So that's takotsubo, parang takot sumubo. But for me, after my first wife died, hindi ako takot sumubo. I ate everything. Bulalo, sisig, Big Mac, Champ, burger, KFC, you know, lahat, junk food, chips. Parang nag-revenge ako. You know, but I realized I was slowly killing myself. And so I gathered myself together and I started to eat healthy, you know, bangus sinigang, tinola, yun ang mga kinain ko. After that, I started working out at the gym and downloaded an app called From Couch Potato to 5K. Yun, Sugos, maganda yan. Where you learn how to run, walk, from being a couch potato watching Netflix to being someone who can run in a 5K at least. And I also allowed my friends and family to take care of me also, to take me on vacations. So they took me to Oslob, Oslob, Cebu, where you have the whale sharks, and then to Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, di silang kami na anak ko. So that's part of being, taking care of yourself and allowing other people to take care of yourself. So there you have it. Just to recap, remember, number one, keep in mind how important hope is. Make the placebo effect and Pygmalion effect work for you. Keep a high HQ or hope quotient. Diba? Have high expectations and high hopes for yourself and your team. And then 3 things: focus your eyes on the author of life. For me, that's my Lord Jesus. Focus your eyes on him and you won't sink in the middle of a storm. Number 2, serve and think of others by refreshing others first. And number 3, take care of you. Take care of yourself. Not only will you be hopeful and refreshed every single year, but you'll be joyful as well. So start looking forward to this new year with full of hope, full of abundance, and full of joy. Good day, and God bless you. And remember this, with God, all things are possible. Thank you very much.
Yes, let's give one power move. One power move for Coach Ardy. Ready, get set, power move, go! Yes!
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
so much.
Get well soon.
Pure, please read our certificate of appreciation.
Coach Ardy would like to give you this virtual certificate of appreciation from Team Mount Pinnacle for your very inspiring hope, about being joyful after everything you've been through, and you're truly an inspiration, your life, your experiences. I'm sure, tama ba? Agree ba tayo, guys?
Yes!
Yes, agree.
Yes.
Get well soon.
Thank you so much, and we hope to see more of you. A-attend na pala kami ni Van dahil may catch yung sabi ni Vanessa Santos, our
Yung sa project author.
Ayun.
Baka daw matulad siya sa inyo, sir. Makakuha ng partner.
Ayan,
Okay lang yan, kahit mali ang kahit hindi eksaktong motive, pwede.
Amy also will be attending. Sino
Ayan,
Wala
ba?
kayo.
Mag-invite ako ng mga Mr. Universe para sa
Thank you so much.
Pero sa Boracay gagawin, Miss Pure. So
Yan,
Madama na
ilabas
yung
nyo yung
Boracay.
2-piece nyo, Van. Pure. Boracay pala.
Parang mahirap burahin sa panaginip yun
Oh,
Thank you so
high
much.
expectations.
Sagot
You're
ka,
welcome.
Can we have a picture? Take
Yes.
it.
Oo, everybody. Proof of life.
Hazel, please, sir.
Cameras on. Videos on, please. Let's go.
Abundance. One,
Power move. Itaas natin. Tapos i-freeze nyo para lahat tayo nakataas ang kamay. Power move. Go! Yes!
yes. Sino nagpipicture?
E di syempre yung si Hazel na lang natitira. Lahat tayo nakataas ang kamay. Okay na, Haze. 2 frames lang naman yan. Can we give another round of applause for Coach Ardy? Yes, salamat po ulit. Thank you. We are so blessed.
Thank you.